We're talking with Dr. Ong Kian Ming, former Malaysian Member of Parliament, and also Steve Okun, Senior Advisor, McClarty Associates, in our International News Review. Steve, I want to get your comments in a moment on this, but first I'm going to give them to Kian Ming. What does this look like for the business community? Is this, the way things have unfolded the past 2 weeks, is it a good news story for Malaysian business in general and the economy there? Or are there any headwinds that might be facing? Kian Ming, to you first and then to Steve.
Yeah, I think there are good news and there are also challenges. The good news is that after 1 week of some political instability because of a hung parliament, no one coalition having a majority of seats, at least we have a prime minister now who has managed to marshal enough support to have about 2/3 support in parliament, and that will be tested in a vote of confidence that will be put on the table on the 19th of December when special parliamentary session is announced. At the same time, I think the business community is assuaged by the fact that it is a diverse cabinet, not just a mono-ethnic cabinet, and with some familiar faces. So, for example, the former Minister of Finance under the previous two governments is now the Minister in charge of Trade and Industry, my former ministry. The Minister of Finance, of course, himself is Anwar Ibrahim, who has been Minister of Finance before. So I think the economic trajectory of the country will be one that will continue to attract foreign investors and put the country on a good growth path for the business community.
And Steve, over to you. What are you seeing now? Now that you're on the ground there, and what are you hearing from your clients?
Well, I think one of the big questions is can the new government attack corruption? I mean, Malaysia has issues with corruption. There are stories of books and movies, and it's gotten worse under the last government, under Transparency International. Malaysia now only ranks 62nd out of 180 countries that are ranked. It's dropped 3 spaces since 2020. And so the new government has its hands full. And so that's one of the questions. Can they attack corruption? And if they can, they are going to be extremely successful. I think the second issue to watch is how does Malaysia balance U.S. And China tensions? That's an issue for all countries in Southeast Asia. It was noteworthy when Anwar spoke on foreign policy. He talked about the importance of China, how it was an important neighbor, but he also said it was equally important to enhance ties with the U.S., the EU, India, and ASEAN. So the second thing to watch, and the third thing that's not here yet, but certainly could be a potential impact for foreign businesses is the rise in power of the Malaysian Islamic Party, the PAS. It won the most seats it ever had in parliament. They advocate an introduction of Sharia law, and that would impact business if they became a strong part of what came out of new laws and regulations. So there is certainly, opportunity, optimism, but it's going to be tough, and there's certainly some headwinds to watch.
Kian Ming, we're going to let you go in just a moment, but a last question to you before we do, and that is, what does Anwar Ibrahim need to do now? What's his next step? What's his next right or correct step in the next week or 2 weeks to solidify his government, his ruling government, with at least 27 new cabinet members? What does he need to do next to make this a real a win for him in coming days?
I think he needs to show the domestic as well as the foreign audience that he has strong support in parliament, and that will be done on the 19th of December. After that, he needs to pass the budget that was not passed earlier this year because the parliament was dissolved. And then he needs to stabilize his cabinet and his key people in cabinet in order to give them, in order to empower them so that they can move forward with the economic agenda of dealing with inflation, dealing with lackadaisical economic growth that's projected in 2023, and then setting a new direction for the country so that we can be on the more stable path to growth in a stable government for the next 4 to 5 years.